Hi there, I'm Machine Pun Kelly, aka MPK, and today I want to talk to you about farms. It might not sound like it, but this affects everyone, so I hope you can take a few minutes to watch this whole video and understand what we're facing. There's a German word, Scheudenfreude, which means pleasure derived by someone from another person's misfortune. And I can get why some people on the left want to take joy in people who literally bet their farm on Donald Trump losing their farms. But what's bad for those farmers is bad for everyone. You can't eat Scheudenfreude. Let's look at why we need to be looking to help out the farmers. Imagine you're driving through rural America in the early 1980s. Picture a long, dusty road cutting through Iowa or California's farm country. The fields are a patchwork of small family farms, each one a little different, growing corn, veggies, or maybe raising a few cows. Farmers wave from their porches, and nearby towns buzz with local markets selling fresh milk and tomatoes. It feels alive, like a community built on hard work and shared roots. Now jump to today, 2025. That same road, it's quieter. Many of those small farms are gone, replaced by huge fields owned by big companies. The local markets, swallowed by giant chains like Walmart. This is the story of how our food system, where it comes from and who controls it, has changed dramatically over the past few decades. And with new policies coming in 2025, things could get even tougher, not just for farmers, but for all of us buying groceries. Let's break it down, step by step, so you can see how we got here and what it means for your plate. First, let's talk about how food production, both farms and the companies that process it, has been getting more and more concentrated for years. Back in 1980, the U.S. had about 2.4 million farms. Most were small, family-run places averaging around 400 acres, growing a mix of crops like wheat, corn, or vegetables, and maybe keeping some animals. These farms weren't just businesses. They were a way of life, supporting rural towns and keeping food prices steady because no single farm had too much power. The companies that turned crops into food, think slaughterhouses for meat or dairies for milk, were also more spread out, often locally owned. But things started changing in the 1980s. Policies under President Reagan made it easier for big businesses to buy out smaller ones. Farm loans got harder for small guys to afford, and subsidies, government payments to help farmers, started favoring those growing huge amounts of corn or soybeans. By 2025, the number of farms has dropped to about 1.88 million, a loss of over 500,000. That's like entire towns disappearing. Dairy farms have been hit hardest, going from 250,000 in 1980 to just 24,546 today. But we're not producing less food. In fact, we're making more, 3 times the milk, for example. How? Bigger farms took over. The average farm size is now over 450 acres, and the top 10% of farms, giant operations, produce 80% of our food. Small farms, which make up 86% of all farms, only contribute about 20% of what we eat. It's not just farms, either. The companies processing and selling food have consolidated too. 4 companies now control 85% of beef, 70% of pork, and 60% of chicken. Seeds for crops? 2 companies, Bayer Monsanto and Corteva, dominate 60% of that market. At the grocery store, Walmart and Kroger alone handle over 30% of sales, up from 15% in 1980. This means fewer players control everything, from the seeds farmers plant to the food on your shelf. How did this happen? It's a mix of economics and policy. In the 1980s, a farm crisis hit. High debt, low crop prices, and foreclosures pushed small farmers out. Big farms and companies bought up the land and equipment. Then came mergers, where huge businesses like Tyson or Cargill snapped up smaller competitors. It's like a game of Monopoly, but instead of hotels, it's slaughterhouses and grain silos. By the 2000s, this consolidation snowballed. Farmers got less money, only 15 cents of every food dollar today, down from 30 cents in 1980, while big companies pocketed the rest. This setup makes the system fragile. When one meat plant shut down during COVID, beef prices spiked 20% because so few companies control the supply. Fewer small farms also mean less innovation, like new ways to grow food sustainably, and higher prices for you at the store. To understand this better, we need a tool called the Herfindahl-Hirschman Index, or HHI. Don't worry if it sounds complicated. It's just a way to measure how much control a few big players have in a market. Think of the food industry as a pie, and each company gets a slice. HHI works by taking each company's share of the market, in percent, squaring it, and adding all those numbers together. If there are tons of small companies, each with a tiny slice, the HHI is low, close to zero. That's a healthy, competitive market. If one company owns the whole pie, its share is 100%, squared to 10,000. That's a monopoly. Here's a quick example. Imagine 4 companies in the beef market. One has 50% of the market, and the other 3 have 10% each. Square those. 50 times 50 is 2,500, and 10 times 10 is 100. Times 3 is 300. Add them up. 2,500 plus 300 equals 2,800. That's a high HHI, showing the market is concentrated, with one big player dominating. The government uses HHI to decide if mergers are okay. A market with an HHI under 1,500 is considered competitive. Between 1,500 and 2,500, it's getting risky. Over 2,500, that's a warning sign of too much control by a few companies. If a merger pushes HHI up by 200 points in a concentrated market, regulators might step in. But since 1980, those rules have been relaxed. Across U.S. industries, HHI has risen 50% since 2000, and food is a prime example. In 1990, the HHI for grocery stores was under 200, very competitive. By 2019, it was over 1,100, a 450% jump because big chains took over. Beef processing, HHI went from 2,500 in 1980 to around 4,000 today. Dairy's at 2,800, and seeds for corn hit 3,000. These numbers scream consolidation. Fewer companies, more power, higher prices. HI isn't perfect. It doesn't account for global competitors or things like product quality. But for food, where local supply chains matter, it's a wake-up call. High HI means farmers have less choice. They're forced to buy seeds or sell crops to a few big players who set the terms. It also means you pay more at the store because those companies can charge what they want. In 2025, early data shows this getting worse. Vegetable fields are shrinking by 2 to 5%, and dairy farms are closing 18% faster than last year, pushing HHI even higher as big farms and companies fill the gap. Now let's talk about what's coming in 2025 with Donald Trump's policies. Trump won a lot of rural votes, 78% in farm-heavy counties, but his plans could hit farmers hard and make consolidation worse. 3 big policies stand out: tariffs, mass deportations, and austerity, which is a fancy word for cutting government spending. Together, they're like a storm hitting an already shaky system. First, tariffs. These are taxes on imported goods, and Trump's pushing big ones. 25% on stuff from Mexico and Canada, which supply 75% of our imported food, like avocados, tomatoes, and cheese, and up to 100% on things from China, like fertilizers and farm equipment. This makes everything more expensive. Fertilizer costs are up 20%, animal feed 15%. For small farmers who don't have extra cash, this is a death blow. It's estimated to add $12 billion to farming costs in 2025 alone. Plus, other countries are fighting back. China's already cut U.S. soybean imports, costing farmers $25 billion in sales. Trump's talking about a $10 to $14 billion bailout, but in his first term, most bailout money went to big farms, not small ones. The result? Smaller farmers can't keep up, while big companies like Cargill, who can afford to lobby for exemptions, come out fine. Next, mass deportations. Trump's executive orders aim to deport 1 to 8 million undocumented people, including about 40% of farm workers, over 1 million people who pick fruit, milk cows, or work in meat plants. In California, which grows a third of our vegetables, this could shrink the economy by 14% and wipe out 7,000 farms. Workers are already leaving fields out of fear, and programs to replace them, like H-2A visas, are too expensive and slow for most small farmers. Early 2025 shows the damage. Vegetable planting is down 3%, and dairy farms are losing cows because there's no one to milk them. Milk prices could jump 90%, and we're already seeing empty shelves for some produce. Then there's austerity, cutting government programs to save money. Trump's team, with input from folks like Elon Musk, froze $2 billion in farm conservation funds and cut food assistance programs like SNAP by 15%. Farm subsidies and crop insurance got tighter too, making it harder for small operations to survive bad years. Without this safety net, farmers are more exposed to the hits from tariffs and deportations. Farm debt is at $562 billion and bankruptcies doubled in the first half of 2025, up 55% from last year. Rural groups like the Kansas Farmers Union say it's a recipe for disaster, with towns losing people and businesses as farms fold. These policies don't work alone. They team up to make things worse. No workers means crops rot in fields. Higher costs from tariffs eat into profits, and no government help leaves small farmers with no way out. Vegetable acreage is already down, and dairy production is shifting to bigger farms that can automate or afford temporary workers. This pushes the HHI higher, maybe 10 to 20% in food processing by 2028, as fewer, larger players take control. Here's the key part. These changes don't just hurt small farms. They hand them over to the big ones. Imagine a family dairy farm in Wisconsin with 100 cows and $200,000 a year in income. Deportations mean they lose half their workers. Tariffs jack up feed costs by 15%, and austerity cuts their subsidies. They can't make it and have to sell. Who buys? A massive operation with 5,000 cows that uses robots and has lawyers to get visa exemptions. Same story for a small tomato farm in Florida. No pickers, higher seed prices, no aid. The land goes to a big grower with deep pockets. In a moderate outlook, this could mean 243,000 small farms closing by 2030. That's 15% of them gone in 5 years. In a worse case, it's 405,000. Total farms could drop to 1.48 million, with small ones making up just 76% instead of 86%. Big farms scoop up the land, boosting their share of production to 85 to 90% in areas like dairy or beef. It's like the 1980s all over again, but faster. We lost 500,000 farms in 45 years. This could take out 200,000 more in just 5. And this hits every American, not just farmers. Farmers suffer too, losing $60,000 per farm on average, with rural suicide rates already up 20% since 2020. But for the rest of us, food scarcity comes first. With 7,000 farms closing in California alone, vegetable supply could fall 10 to 15%, leading to shortages. We're seeing it now. lettuce prices up 8%, carrots 5%. Tariffs block cheap imports and deportations stop harvesting, so by 2028, basics like tomatoes or milk might be hard to find in some stores, with rationing in bad spots. Even worse is inflation. When fewer farms and companies control supply, they can raise prices without worry. Basics become luxury items. Milk at $5 to $6 a gallon, up from $3.50, a head of lettuce at $3 instead of $1.50. Overall food prices could rise 5 to 6% nationally by 2026, adding $2,400 a year to the average family's grocery bill. Low-income folks get hit hardest. Food insecurity could jump 20%, especially with SNAP cuts. Remember how eggs went up 70% in 2022 from bird flu and tight supply? Expect more of that. The effects spread further. Higher prices squeeze everyone's budget. Food inflation has already added 23.5% since 2020. Less fresh produce means health problems like more obesity or diabetes, especially in areas without good stores. The economy takes a hit too. Agriculture is 5.5% of GDP and 10% of jobs, so rural decline could slow growth by 6%. The environment suffers. Big farms use more water and pollute more, while small ones often do better at soil care. And fairness? Black and Latino farmers lose out twice as much, making inequality worse. This doesn't have to happen. We could push for stronger rules on mergers, fairer subsidies that help small farms, and better worker programs. Ignoring the signs, like those rising HHI numbers, and acting like tariffs protect everyone while deporting the hands that feed us. It's just speeding up the takeover by big companies. Food isn't just calories, it's about who holds the power. When a handful of giants decide what we eat and how much we pay, it affects us all. Next time you grab that apple at the store, think about the farm it came from and the policies shaping its future. The rural road is getting emptier. Let's not let the voices fade too. Being fair, this is a problem that didn't crop up overnight, pun intended. It's been going on for 45 years. But Trump's policies exacerbate an already serious problem, and regardless of your politics, you need to eat. Regardless of who you voted for, you should want our small farmers to succeed. And regardless of your politics, Trump's policies will hurt them and you.